What if a war between the United States and Iran suddenly pushed oil prices to $200 per barrel? Fuel prices could skyrocket across the world, global inflation could surge again, and economies everywhere could face a serious shock. But could this actually happen? Oil markets have become extremely sensitive to geopolitical tensions. Conflicts in major energy regions can quickly disrupt supply and send prices soaring. A conflict involving Iran would be especially important because of one critical location, the Strait of Hormuz. Every day, roughly 20% of the world's oil supply moves through this narrow waterway between Iran and the Arabian Peninsula. That means nearly 1 out of every 5 barrels of oil traded globally passes through this small but vital route. If military conflict disrupted shipping in this area, global oil markets could experience an immediate supply shock. Even a temporary disruption could send prices sharply higher. In recent months, oil markets have already shown signs of volatility. Prices have fluctuated as geopolitical tensions and supply concerns continue to influence global energy markets. Shipping costs for energy cargo have also increased in some regions as insurance premiums for oil tankers rise whenever geopolitical risks increase. When transportation risks rise, the cost of moving oil increases as well, and that cost eventually reaches consumers. The price drivers pay at the pump reflects not only the cost of oil production but also transportation, security, and supply chain risks. Even small disruptions in global energy supply chains can create ripple effects across the entire world economy. For oil prices to reach $200 per barrel, several major factors would likely need to occur at the same time. First, there would need to be a significant disruption in Middle Eastern oil exports. If oil tankers were unable to safely pass through the Strait of Hormuz, millions of barrels of oil could disappear from the market almost overnight. Second, global demand would likely remain strong. Countries like China and India continue consuming massive amounts of energy as their economies grow. Together, these two countries account for a large share of global energy demand growth. Finally, market psychology could play a powerful role. Oil markets react extremely quickly to geopolitical risk. Sometimes the fear of shortages alone can push prices sharply higher. If oil prices actually reach $200 per barrel, the economic consequences would be enormous. Fuel prices could surge dramatically across the world. Transportation costs would rise sharply, making everyday goods more expensive. Air travel could become significantly more costly as airlines struggle with higher fuel expenses. Shipping costs would also increase, raising the price of international trade. Trucking companies, logistics firms, and manufacturers would all face higher operating costs. These costs would eventually pass down to consumers in the form of higher prices. Higher energy prices would also push global inflation upward. Central banks might be forced to keep interest rates elevated to control rising prices. For many economies, this combination could slow economic growth or even trigger a recession. However, not every country would lose from extremely high oil prices. Some nations could benefit significantly. One major example is Russia, one of the world's largest oil exporters. When global oil prices rise, Russia earns more revenue from every barrel it sells. Higher oil prices could strengthen the country's finances and increase its economic leverage. Other oil-producing nations such as Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, and Norway could also see major increases in government revenue. For these countries, higher oil prices often translate into stronger national budgets. Fortunately, there are also factors that could prevent oil from reaching such extreme levels. Major producers like Saudi Arabia and the United States could increase production to stabilize markets. Governments could release oil from their strategic petroleum reserves during supply disruptions, and over time, the expansion of renewable energy may reduce the world's dependence on oil. Still, the global economy remains heavily dependent on energy markets, and that means geopolitical tensions will continue to influence oil prices. A conflict between the United States and Iran could certainly shake global energy markets, but whether oil actually reaches $200 per barrel would depend on how severe and how long the disruption lasts. Energy markets have faced shocks before. The real question is whether the global economy is prepared for the next one.